Hi everybody. H2O Field, Chris here coming at you. It is Saturday, April the 11th, 2026. It's National 8-Track Tape Day, but I like to call it Worldwide National 8-Track Tape Day. We are in the southeast corner of the living room. I'm kind of rearranging the 8-track collection, so I thought I would do a kind of rundown on it. We're going to do the rundown. Here's the great hand that you see all the time in my videos. First of all, what you're looking at here is the Spotify 100. This is out of a radio station, and it holds exactly 100 cartridges, but they would have been those little 4-track thingies for commercials and stuff. So I've changed it into a beautiful 8-track tape holder. Here's number one. The Association's Greatest Hits. Now I have the slipcase for it. That's pretty cool. You know, these things don't survive. The Association's Greatest Hits. They call this a Dynapack cartridge. It's got the screw in it. So I'm not going to take that long on every cartridge, but there's certain ones I want to show you. I'm going to show them to you. Canadian Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. We've got If You Want Blood, You've Got It, the live album. How about Highway to Hell? And we have Back in Black from 1980. I wish I had Power Age on 8-track AC/DC. That would be great. Okay, then we've got Angel, the debut album, 70s rock band. It's their second album, hell of a band. And then there's Angel on Earth as There Is in Heaven. And this is American Angel White Hot. All right, Aerosmith. Aerosmith debut, this US copy of the debut Aerosmith from 73. Get Your Wings from 74. Toys in the Attic, kind of a rough one, USA copy. There's Aerosmith Rocks, USA copy. Got Draw the Line, Aerosmith. Here's Draw the Line in a Canadian cartridge. And Aerosmith Live Bootleg. It's a double album. Got Aerosmith Night in the Ruts, US copy. Aerosmith's Greatest Hits. It's Canadian cartridge. That's it for Aerosmith. So we're on A, down at the bottom there. So I've got Alice Cooper. I've got this Sound-Alikes Alice Cooper. It's pretty cool. The guy sounds nothing like Alice Cooper, but people were releasing them back in the day. So, go by Alice Cooper Group. Here's Easy Action, the second album. There's Alice Cooper, Love It to Death. There's Alice Cooper's Killer. Here's The School's Out. This one's in mint condition. Here's Billion Dollar Babies, Alice Cooper. Okay, we got Tommy Bolin, Private Eyes. Guitar player, died way too young. How about Brownsville Station, School Punks, in a US pink cartridge. Brownsville Station, Motor City Connection. There's Brownsville Station's Air Special, Canadian. Brownsville Station, Yeah, in the old Ampex cart. I don't know why I have so many of them. How about the Beach Boys? Here's an old Little Deuce Coupe, the old pink Capitol style cartridge, pretty cool. Here's the Beach Boys Christmas album. One of the better Christmas albums ever made. Got Beach Boys' Spirit of America. Beach Boys in concert. Early 70s. We got Beach Boys High Water. This is a Pickwick double album, but it's really good. One of the better comps out there. Black Capitol cartridges, Beach Boys All Summer Long. And Beach Boys California Girls. Another compilation called Summer Fun, the Beach Boys. TV Records. And lastly, my treasure, Beach Boys Pet Sounds in the mono. It even says here this recording is in mono the way Brian cut it. My favorite 8-track, one of those for sure. Okay, onward through B. I've got this Badfinger straight up, still in the shrink wrap. Badfinger straight up. And we've got Bebop Deluxe Modern Music. Interesting band. Okay. Got Pat Benatar's Crimes of Passion. Still into the B's. It's working out, everybody. That's cool. Blondie Parallel Lines, just because everybody should have that one. Probably never heard of this one. Bloodwind Pig. A Head Rings Out. Bloodwind Pig. Check them out. Kind of a blues rock, late 60s band. Here's the B-52's debut album, Canadian cartridge. Here's Buckingham Nicks. It's kind of a rare one, especially on the 8-track format. Here's one from the 60s repressing. Fire, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. Pretty awesome psych rock. Got some Blue Oyster Cult here. Tyranny and Mutation. Blue Oyster Cult, Agents of Fortune. Don't Fear the Reapers on this one. Here's Spectres. This is a good one. I kind of had to revisit it. It's really good. I've always been a fan of Blue Oyster Cult. They're awesome. Here's Mirrors, Blue Oyster Cult. Here's the Boston debut in a red Canadian cartridge. Here's the Boston debut in a yellow Canadian cartridge. And here's the Boston debut in a black Canadian cartridge. Don't Look Back, Boston. We were on C. We got John Cougar, American Fool. Slightly rare there on the, 1982, 83. How about the Chambers Brothers? Time Has Come Today. Awesome stuff. I don't know why I have this one, Crawler. I guess it's just the album cover. This kind of one-off kind of pop metal band, late 70s. There's Elvis Costello's My Aim Is True. The Cars debut, Canadian yellow and pink cartridge. There's the Cars debut on a US cartridge. All-time hits of the Cowsills. Time for some Cheap Trick. Cheap Trick debut album. We got Cheap Trick In Color. The third album, Heavens Tonight. And of course, Budokan. Gotta have that on 8-track. The Dream Police. Here's Cheap Trick's All Shook Up US cartridge with the slipcase. This is J.J. Cale, Naturally. It's a good listen, this one. Here's a nice original Ampex, Deja Vu by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. Here's that City Boy Band from Birmingham, England, on debut album. And then I think this is their 4th album, Book Early. City Boy. Got Bob Dylan's Greatest Hits. You got to have one of those. Here's a good one. Great sounding recording. Diodato and Prelude. It's got the 2001 version on here. It sounds awesome. Here's a Deep Purple self-titled album. Big pile of Deep Purple coming up. Here's In Rock, Canadian cartridge. And another version of In Rock with the Warner Brothers stripe on it. I haven't even checked if this is working. I should see if I'm on air here, but it says it is. Here's Machine Head, Canadian cartridge. Deep Purple, made in Japan. Got Deep Purple, Who Do You Think We Are? With Woman from Tokyo on it. Here's that hits compilation for Deep Purple. When we rock, we rock. When we roll, we roll. Of course. Easy for me to say. Okay, we're up to the D's. I got any inserts here? No. Another shot of coffee. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on National 8-Track Tape Day, you can look it up. It's actually today, April the 11th, 2026, National 8-Track Tape Day. Make sure you check out something 8-track related. Coffee. Alrighty then. The Doors. This is a bootleg greatest hits of the Doors, and it's got great audio. Great discovery that one was. Here's the Doors' LA Woman. It's the Doors 13, or just self-titled. All right, we're moving on to E. Should I put Edmonds and Rockpile together? There's something. Just keep going here. We got Dave Edmonds' Tracks on Wax. Got Dave Edmonds' Repeat When Necessary. It's a great record. I'll put the Rockpile with the R's. Here's Electric Light Orchestra. Here's the 2nd album. Here's ELO's El Dorado. ELO's Greatest Hits. And ELO Out of the Blue. And we're on to F. Anything to put in? No. Okay. We got Sons of the Beaches, Flash Cadillac and the Continental Kids. Who has this one out there? Anybody? I doubt it. Did You Boogie With Your Baby is the song on there. Here's Light My Fire, the Firebirds. So kind of a late 60s psychedelic thing. Not too bad of a listen. We're on F here, obviously. Here's the Faces. Rod Stewart and the Faces. Ooh La La. Got the Faces Long Player. Got the Faces A Nod As Good As a Wink on the Ampex cartridge. How about the Fabulous Poodles? Interesting band, kind of violin rock. Got the 5-Man Electrical Band. Underrated Canadian band, in my opinion. All right, here's the Flirtations. It's kind of northern soul. Kind of a rare one, this one. I got Frampton Comes Alive in the A&M slipcase, the quintessential 8-track tape. It's either this, Boston, or Meatloaf, but here's Frampton Comes Alive. Here's Flood, another underrated Canadian band, debut album. And I conveniently put Goddo, Who Cares, right underneath Flood because Godovitz came from Flood and formed Goddo. Let us move over. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of rock memorabilia here. I've got my top 15 tapes up there in the top. We'll be visiting that in a minute, so it's just time to move on. We are on G. I have like 5 tapes over here I have to insert into the collection, so we'll move on. We're on G, and that is in the top left here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Genesis Live. The Best of the Guess Who Volume 2. I have many Guess Who tapes, but not here because you only need a couple. Here's probably the best comp to get is the Guess Who 20 original hits. Very good compilation. Here's the great Rory Gallagher and Calling Card. Here's another Rory Gallagher, Against the Grain. He's a great Irish guitar player. We're on to H. Herman's Hermits. Best of Herman's Hermits. And a beefy 1969 quality Canadian cartridge. H. Oh, we're into the Hendrix. Here's Hendrix, Are You Experienced? Canadian release. Here's Hendrix, Axis Bold as Love. So I have a couple versions of Electric Ladyland. This is a volume 2, 2-tape set, volume 2. And then I have a volume 1 in the original cardboard slipcase. It's kind of rare. H. And another copy of volume 2, Hendrix, Electric Ladyland. Here's a really nice Ampex Smash Hits, Hendrix. The Cry of Love, Hendrix. Here's the Hudson Brothers in Hollywood Situation. Anybody remember the Hudson Brothers on TV? Here's Sammy Hagar, Street Machine. Hurricane Smith. I wonder if anybody recognizes that guy. Okay. Got a J. Guess I got to get up to the M's here a bit. Okay, whatever. Iron Butterfly, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. 2 programs are the drum solo, of course. And we're on to J. Got Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I Love Rock and Roll. It's a club cartridge, as you can tell, with the blue border. I have Joe Jackson's Look Sharp. And Joe Jackson, I'm the Man. Canadian version. J. Well, I guess I'll have to slip Judas Priest in there. So I have Judas Priest British Steel. Kind of a rare cartridge. And that'll go in there. And I have Klaatu at the debut, 3:47 Eastern Standard Time. And then Klaatu Sir Army Suit. And then Hope by Klaatu. So everything's getting bumped up here. How about some Kinks? Absolutely. the Kinks Greatest Hits. Nice cartridge here. Marble Records. Here's an RCA, the Kinks Celluloid Heroes, another Greatest Hits comp. Excellent stuff. Oh yeah, I got a slip at Klaatu there. And then Golden Hour of the Kinks. That's another hits compilation. Okay, here's the Knack, Get the Knack or whatever, debut album. And here's the second one, The Little Girls Understand. I have Nick Lowe, Pure Pop for Now People. And Nick Lowe, Labor of Lust. We're live because it is National Worldwide 8-Track Tape Day, 11th of April of every year. We celebrate the 8-track tape cartridge. We're doing a rundown on my collection. We're up to L, but it's time to shove everything over a bit. We are here, Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush live. Great live album. Here's the Molly Hatchet debut album. There's Molly Hatchet Beating the Odds. That's her third album, I believe. Okay, here's the Montrose debut album, Canadian. Second Montrose album, Paper Money. This is the one I found in a used shop, and I had it as a kid, and I found it like 30 years later. Kind of cool. Montrose Warner Brothers Presents. Have Montrose Jump on it in a Canadian cartridge. Really nice looking tape in that green. And here's Jump on It in the US cartridge. Here's a solo Ronnie Montrose Open Fire. Okay, I have the Moody Blues here, Days of Future Past. This is a British cartridge. Sounds great. It's all British 8-tracks that I've ever heard sound great. They've got half decent equipment. How about Max Webster debut album? Got Mad Cats here, another obscure Canadian group. Hey, on to the Zappa and Mothers stuff here. I have Fillmore East, Mothers. Got Just Another Band from LA. Oh, got the Grand Wazoo. We got Joe's Garage Act 1. Here's Zappa, Roxy, and Elsewhere. Missing the slipcase. Alright, I've got a couple of M's to add here. Of Mama Cass. This is a Pickwick release of 2 of her first albums. But it's really good. Her voice is great. Here's Moxie's debut. And I have to make space for 2 more Moxie albums. But we'll put it in there for now. Yeah, there's some other bands that are coming up here that have so many tapes that they have their own sections. And they're not part of the alphabetical order. So you'll see that momentarily. Happy National Worldwide 8-Track Tape Day, everybody. I know you've been dreaming of this day as long as I have. All right, we are at N, and I have some Sandy Nelson. Sandy Nelson Teen Beat. I love Sandy Nelson vintage 60s. Here's Drums A Go-Go. Drums. He put out like 60 or 70 records back in the 60s and early 70s. Here's Let There Be Drums. Soul drumming. They're mostly just comps and instrumentals. Pretty awesome stuff. The Police debut album, US. The Police, Regatta de Blanc. The Police, Zenyatta Mandata. The Police, Ghost in the Machine. And lastly, of course, I have Synchronicity by The Police, Club Cartridge, of course. P. Excuse me. Not used to going live and talking. How about some Tom Petty? Got Damn the Torpedoes. This with the Heartbreakers, You're Gonna Get It. It's one of my favorites. P. Emmy's Elvis. The double length Elvis from Aloha from Hawaii. And Elvis at Madison Square Garden. Now that's all I have in my keepers. I have another pile of 70 or so Elvis in the other room, but they're not part of my core collection. I'm just arranging the core collection. I just have to remember at R, I've got a whole pile to put in here. So, Paper Lace. Yeah, I actually have Paper Lace on 8-track. I love the Black Eyed Boys. So, Iggy Pop, The Idiot. It's one you don't see very often. Canadian cartridge. P. We're still on the P's. I have Poco's Legend. Just because I like it. And Q. This is the Suzi Quatro debut album. The US version of the Suzi Quatro debut. Suzi's second album, Quatro. The third one is Your Mama Won't Like Me. We have Suzi and Other Four-Letter Words. It's about the time she was on the Happy Days. On to Q and Queen. The debut album of Queen, Canadian cartridge. Queen 2. We have Sheer Heart Attack. And I have Day at the Races. I guess I don't have Night at the Opera. I thought I did. Oh well. Okay, now we're moving into the R's. And we got a big shuffle coming on here. People are actually watching. Hi, everybody. You know what day it is. It is International Worldwide 8-Track Tape Day. And I'm arranging the collection. We're up to Q. We're up to R now. And let's start off with, if it doesn't fall apart here, we got Paul Revere and the Raiders. All-time greatest hits. Awesome stuff. I've got Lou Reed's Rock and Roll Animal. And speaking of Lou Reed, I have Transformer here to insert. Lou Reed's Transformer, Canadian white cartridge. We have Todd Rundgren's Something Anything. And then I have Rockpile, Dave Emmons and Nick Lowe. It's a great album. Quickly look at the Rush. Here's the debut album, Rush. Fly By Night, of course. These are original slipcases. We have Caress of Steel by Rush. $21.12. 2112 in the black cartridge. Moving Pictures. Okay, Farewell to Kings. There you go, Permanent Waves. And a couple of copies of Hemispheres in case you wear out one. So that Rush piles by itself there. As we move on to S. Where are we? Shoes, present tense. Good power pop band if you've never heard them. Shoes, present tense. I have Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. The Surfaris Wipeout. You have to have one of those in your collection. You have to. How about this one? Jim Stafford debut album. Good 8-track. Underrated for sure. We have Sergio Mendes in Brazil 66 Greatest Hits. So check out Matt Williamson's channel, and he's covering Brazil 66, and he is so good at covering music. Matt Williamson. Look out his channel. Search out his channel. Great guy. Here's Steppenwolf, 16 great performances. How about Starcastle, Citadel? This is kind of progressive rock from the mid-late 70s. And they're from Ohio or something, yet they sound like a British prog band. It's pretty good. Kind of like Yes. Steve Miller's Book of Dreams. You notice the condition on my tapes. It's all pretty darn good. I try anyways. Here's Stars debut album. That's Stars Violation. Stars Attention Shoppers. If things don't fall apart here. And of course, lastly, a rough copy of Colosseum Rock, but at least completes the collection of Stars. Let's throw this one in because it sits up by itself. Van Halen's 1984, pretty rare cartridge. Okay, we're moving down to here, and the S's are continuing. From Stars, we go to Steely Dan. Got a whack of Steely Dan here. One whack. So Pretzel Logic. The Royal Scam. We've got Gaucho. Katy Lied. Another GRT version of Katy Lied. Got Asia. Another version of Pretzel Logic. I have no shortage of Steely Dan. Here's Greatest Hits, Steely Dan. The GRT version of Asia. Here's two versions of Can't Buy a Thrill. And I think that does it for S. Oh, Ruby Star. The lovely and talented Ruby Star with Scene Stealer. Put Ruby with Steely. Steely and Ruby, how appropriate. So we got Status Quo. We got Status Quo Live. It's one of the true live albums with no interruptions in it. There's Desolation Boulevard, of course. That's one of my favorite 8-tracks right there. And Level Headed. And I have Give Us a Wink, but it's out somewhere else at the moment. I'm going to make a space for that. And I guess I got everything in that I need to. Here's Canadian band Street Heart, Meanwhile Back in Paris. Drugstore Dancer, Street Heart. Canadian rock act of the 80s. Pretty good band, actually. Quicksand Shoes, Street Heart. Another version of Meanwhile Back in Paris, Street Heart. Have Tony OK, Life in the Food Chain. How about the Turtles' Greatest Hits? Love this one. Turtles' Greatest Hits. Here's kind of like a pop metal proggy band from the 70s. Trillion out of Colorado. I have Triumph's Just a Game. T-Rex Electric Warrior. I have T-Rex The Slider. T-Rex Tanks. Here's Light of Love, which is actually earlier stuff re-released. Not some of it anyways. Okay, Thin Lizzy, Jailbreak. Thin Lizzy, Johnny the Fox. How about you, UFO, Lights Out. Van Halen debut. There's Van Halen 2. So that's V. The Who. Magic Bus. I wonder if this is a British cartridge. It is. Magic Bus by The Who, British. And I have this one, Magic Bus in My Generation, a 2-pack Canadian. The Who, Meaty, Beady, Big and Bouncy. The Who Live at Leeds. And of course, Who's Next? I have Quadrophenia, I gotta get that one. On to W, Joe Walsh. Best of Joe Walsh. And I put James Gang, Best of James Gang together with Joe. ZZ Top. Yes, we're on Z, but there's still tons more to go, so stick with me. We have ZZ Top's Greatest Hits. Fandango. And Rio Grande Mud. All right, that's Zed. Now we get into the bands that I have really big collections of. So they get their own little stack. And that's over here. All right, so at the top, what you see there is the Ventures. All of this is the Ventures. So 6 times 6, 36, 37, 38, 39 different Ventures. We're not going to look at them all because I'm getting weary. Not really. I'm doing it all for National 8-Track Tape Day, which is today, April the 11th, in case you were wondering. Worldwide National 8-Track Tape Day. Okay, let's get her done here. Black Oak, Arkansas. They're an 8-track band, so there's a lot of Black Oak tapes out there. Here's Raunch and Roll, that live album. That kind of broke them, I guess, eh? Here's Balls of Fire. Have Street Party, Black Oak, Arkansas. How about High on the Hog? Ain't Life Grand? There's Keep the Faith. I think that's their second one. Here's Early Times, a reissue of their 69 album, 1969. There's another live Black Oak, Arkansas, Live Mother. We got Black Oak, Arkansas X-Rated. And will I drop them while I'm holding? We have Best of Black Oak, Arkansas. So, yeah, a big pile of Black Oak for whatever reason. It's not like I'm a big fan. It's just, you know, they're like baseball cards after a while. They get to be a bit much. How about Black Sabbath? Got the debut Canadian Black Sabbath. We have Paranoid, one version of Canadian. There's the Racing Stripe version of Paranoid. Got Master of Reality. Another Canadian version of Master of Reality. Got Volume 4. Sabbath, the Bloody Sabbath. We have Sabotage. And last one, Technical Ecstasy. A nice pile of Sabbath, if I do say so myself. All Canadian cartridges. Well, there's a lot of Foghat here. I'll breeze through it. A couple of copies of Fool for the City. Got 3 copies of Energized. One of them was brand new, opened. 3 copies of Energized, US and 2 Canadian. Here's the debut of Foghat. Got a couple copies of that one. Foghat, another quintessential 8-track band. Here's Rock and Roll. A Rock and a Roll. Canadian and US versions. Foghat's Night Shift, Canadian, US. Foghat's Stone Blue, Canadian and US versions. Here's a Boogie Motel, Rock and Roll Outlaws. There's Tight Shoes, Foghat. Rock and Roll Outlaws, another version. Oops, finally dropped one. That's the first dropped one of the day. Pretty good. Foghat Live is what I dropped. Alright, it's looking good. We're organized. Okay, next up is Janis. Janis Joplin's big brother. Big Brother and Holding Company. It's a debut. I've got Cheap Thrills. It's a Greatest Hits Janis Joplin compilation. Another Greatest Hits. Or let's see, in concert. A bunch of live stuff of her. Here's the soundtrack for that documentary film that came out of Janis. There's Cosmic Blues. Got Pearl and Janis's Greatest Hits. We love Janis. How about the Led Zeppelin? Here's the debut Canadian cartridge. This is mint condition, this one. Led Zepp 2. We have Led Zepp 3. Here's self-titled. Houses of the Holy. Another version of the self-titled. I have Presence. Physical Graffiti, and In Through the Outdoor. So I'm missing Coda, and Song Remains the Same, obviously. Quick look at some Creedence Clearwater Revival, 20 Greatest Hits, very good compilation. Got Live CCR, Live in Europe, Pendulum, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Bayou Country, the old Ampex cartridge, Cosmos Factory, and Self-Titled. Chuck Berry collection. Oh, Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis. So we got Jerry Lee Lewis London Sessions. Oh, put fats down. Oh, Jerry Lee Lewis original Golden Hits. Part 2 of the twin pack of London Sessions, Jerry Lee Lewis. And Fats Domino, the fantastic Fats Domino. Okay, Chuck Berry. Here's Golden Decade Volume 3, double length. Go 3, 2, 1 here. Here's Chuck Berry's Golden Decade Volume 2. And of course, Chuck Berry's Volume Decade Volume 1. That's 3 twin packs. The Chuck Berry's Greatest Hits. Got the Johnny B. Good Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry in Memphis. Yes, I like Chuck Berry. Here's a twin pack. St. Louis to Frisco. Another Chuck Berry's Greatest Hits. Oh look, another Chuck Berry album. Chuck and His Friends. What? One more? Here's Chuck Berry Bio. Double Live Gonzo. It's probably my favorite live album because of the energy on it. Here's like from the Amboy Dukes. It's an early one here. It's called Survival of the Fittest. Late 60s. Here's Nugent's debut album. And came Free for All, Canadian. Here's United States Cat Scratch Fever. And Canadian version of Cat Scratch Fever. American version of Double Live Gonzo. Weekend Warrior, Canadian. Weekend Warrior, American. We got State of Shock and Scream Dream. So that's all the Nugent. Okay, soundtracks. I really want to do all the soundtracks. Then comes all the Beatles. And then that's the Quadraphonics down there, folks. This whole section from here to here is quadraphonic. I don't think I'm going to go through all that. And then the bottom is all variouses. Everything's pretty well straightened out. So on that note, I'll just run down this section here of Beatles because you got to show the Beatles on 8-track. And we got to do the top 15 favorite 8-tracks. That's yet to come here. So we have The Graduate. Dustin Hoffman in The Graduate. We have Warriors, Come Out and Play. How about the Young Frankenstein soundtrack on 8-track? Like, come on. Here's FM. It's a great soundtrack. How about Jaws on 8-track? Just what you want to listen to in the car. Here's Roadie. It's got a lot of good stuff on it. Alice Cooper and Blondie and stuff. Here's Joyride. This one has ELO in it. Here's Let the Good Times Roll. It's a documentary revival around 73 of the 50s bands. Here's Xanadu, because ELO is on it, of course. And here's a lovely copy of Woodstock, parts 1 and 2 on the Cotillion label. Nice set, that. Onward. Here's a couple copies of Phantom of the Paradise, my favorite movie. How about the Wild Angels on the vintage GRT cartridge? Got Easy Rider. Have 2001 on a vintage Ampex cartridge. It's a 2001 on the Canadian cartridge. Have American Graffiti soundtrack on Ampex. This is part 2 of American Graffiti. And here's the Canadian version, a 2-pack American Graffiti all in one. Of course, here's more American Graffiti. And the soundtrack to Stardust, David Essex. All right, let's look at the Beatles. Here's the US and Canadian versions of the early Beatles on Capitol. So these ones came out in 71 or 72, the black cartridges. So it's the white ones that came out earlier, as you'll see. But we'll do the later ones first. The early Beatles. So Abbey Road, I have slipcases for just about everything. Here's Abbey Road. Got the Beatles 6, the Beatles 65, the Beatles Yesterday and Today. Let's do it this way here. The 2-album set of the Beatles Part 1 and 2 of 62, 66. And of course the blue, 6770, got one in the shrink wrap still. All you Beatles fans out there, like I am. Here's that Hey Jude release, still in the shrink. There's Beatles love songs, Capitol. Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl, the floor squeaking. Here's Let It Be. And another Let It Be, because you need 2 of them. Okay, here's the white cartridges. The cool pink labels. Here's Beatles 65. Again, I find they sound a little bit beefier. Here's Abbey Road on the Apple white label. The Sgt. Pepper. This has extended pieces on it that aren't on the album. Here's Magical Mystery Tour. Pink label capitals. Here's Yellow Submarine. It's Apple label, I should say. Here's Rubber Soul. It's kind of beat. This would be an original early pressing. Same with this Yesterday and Today. This one has 2 on it. It has Beatles 6 and Yesterday Today on it. So kind of rare that it has the 2 albums on it. Moving on. Here's the early Beatles and the early Capitol pressing, first run. Beatles' second album. Got Meet the Beatles. It's a Hey Jude on the white cartridge. Have Hard Day's Night, US version. And Something New. Lots of Beatles, folks. Some more. Okay, this will be Beatles and solo Beatles coming up next, as we wind down the collection. all aside. Doing it this way. All right. We're still with the band here, so I have Beatles White Album in white cartridges. Nice little set there. Missing the gold embossed box. And here's White Album in the black cartridges. And another copy of Magical Mystery Tour. Alright, solo Beatles. George Harrison. So I have Concert for Bangladesh, 2-tape set. George Harrison. I have Extra Texture, George Harrison. Living in the Material World, George Harrison. Here's Dark Horse by George. 33 1/3. Self-titled, George Harrison. I have Ringo's Bad Boy and Goodnight Vienna. Lastly, Lennon and McCartney. So we have the hits compilation, Shaved Fish, John Lennon. We have Imagine. Plastic Ono Band. Somewhere in New York City. Paul McCartney's Tug of War. Purple cartridge, kind of weird. Here's Back to the Egg, McCartney. Wings Greatest Hits. McCartney's London Town. Wings Back to the Egg in a Canadian cartridge. Venus and Mars. Got Band on the Run. Red Rose Speedway. Wings at the Speed of Sound. And lastly, Ram. There's a shelf up here for my special favorites. So I'm going to show them to you before I say goodbye. Again, thanks for hanging. Number 1, we have the Rolling Stones. This is the debut album in a mint Atco cartridge. Later pressing, but still very cool. We have Leonard Skinner's Street Survivors with the Flames cover. I have Madonna's Like a Virgin. I'm not a Madonna fan, but this tape is kind of rare and valuable, so I'm going to make some money on it later. How about that? Adam and the Ant, or no, this is Adam Ant solo, Friend or Foe. Huey Lewis and the News Sports. Gets in 1983, that's why it's kind of rare. How about this one? Devo, Are We Not Men? Canadian cartridge. That's a tough one. How about the Ramones, Road to Ruin? I have 2 versions of it. That's impressive. Then we have the New York Dolls, the debut, and Too Much Too Soon. Still in the shrink. This Gordon Lightfoot Sundown. I just love the composition here, the colors and everything. It's so cool. Gordon Lightfoot. How about the Banana Splits? Nobody has this one. On the Decca cartridge. Early 70s TV show. Here's my homemade head pins. Turn it loud. Just kind of rip the CD to a tape. Here's the Montrose debut in the slipcase, still saved. Here's the Turtles. Battle of the Bands with the slipcase. Love that one. Here we have Sparks Propaganda Island Record slipcase. And the last four are sealed. We have Kraftwerks Autobahn in a sealed Phillips cartridge. Wow. How about the Go-Go's Vacation sealed copy? We have the Queen debut in a sealed copy. And lastly, we have David Bowie's Heroes RCA sealed cartridge. Thanks for hanging with me, everybody. It's been wonderful showing off my core collection of 8 tracks and getting them all organized. And again, thanks for joining me. Have yourself an absolutely wonderful day. Bye for now.